Welcome to Galaxy Tenants Burning Man Chronicles Chapter 6. Today we head to San Jose, California for a conversation with Neil Kelly of Playa Jazz Cafe, and we feature Hey Hey NSA and The Montage by Jacob Fred Jazz Odyssey.
How are you, Neil?
I'm pretty good. I mean, making it through somehow in this insane year.
Same. I would be remiss if I didn't start by thanking you. We've never met. We've never talked. However, your camp at Burning Man is a staple of my experience there. And that experience is something I hold in a very high regard. So thank you for the Playa Jazz Cafe.
Oh, man, you're welcome. I'm glad that it's served you like it served us.
Can you tell me a little bit about the camp, maybe when it formed, and just kind of the ethos behind the camp?
Yeah, for sure, man. So basically, the history of the camp is related to sort of my history of going to Burning Man for a very long time or whatever. But so I went to Burning Man first in 1996 when it was still like 12 miles out in the desert and tickets were $35 and all of that stuff. And I went out with my wife and then my one friend who was in a band with me, this bass player. We met out there and we checked it out. And at that point, he's like, man, we should come back again and bring the band out here and set up and play, And at that time, we were still doing mostly rock, original rock stuff and whatnot. But that was 96, and then I didn't end up going back for years and years. And then that band that we were originally in, the drummer, Terrell, got a, idea in like 2002. He's like, hey, man, I've been hearing about this Burning Man thing. We should go out, and see what's up. And Terrell is still the mastermind and chief engineer of the camp. But so we drove out there in a rented budget van in 2002. It was like the Floating World or whatever. And we're like, at that point, we had started playing jazz, kind of more primarily, just a kind of hack jazz trio, guitar, bass, and drums. And so, we go out there and we camp in Hushville, and Terrell brought this big generator and a shade structure, and it was totally hack. We had no idea what we were doing, and people are yelling at us for our loud thing, and we had to share someone else's box to try to surround it. It was crazy, but we ended up setting up under a shade structure in the day a couple of times. And just playing music, and we're playing, and then it's like this sax player comes through, and he's just like, hey, what's up? And he starts jamming with us, and so we got this idea, man, we should like do an actual camp and come out here, and have jam sessions, and set up and play and see what's up. And so the following year, someone Terrell was working with, Bill Frank, really got inspired to go and kind of lead the ship. And he was like the quintessential master of communications, ringleader, official camp lead, who communicated to people and by email and got everything registered and did all of that stuff that none of us, were super good at, so to speak. And so in 2003, they applied to be the Jazz Cafe. And I don't know if it was officially named the Playa Jazz Cafe that year or if it had something to do with the Beyond Belief theme or something. But so basically we had Bill as our ringleader. We got this giant geodesic dome that, of course, Terrell could figure out how to put together. We went down to the surplus place near Monterey and Moss Landing and the Army surplus and got this giant green cargo chute. We had a generator and we're like, let's go out there. We're going to build a jazz dome, And so we got placed in center camp. For whatever reason. Some people say that the man was a jazz fan or whatever, or we were small enough to fit in the space or whatnot. So we went out and we just set up a dome. We didn't even have an entranceway into our dome, so you had to like crawl through the grid to even get in there. We didn't have PA systems. It was basically just guitar, bass, and drums, our 2 amps. I don't even know if we had a microphone the first year. Maybe we did, because Bill and Terrell both worked in a recording studio, and so he probably, had mic situation and whatnot. And so that was the first year, 2003, that we did the Jazz Cafe. And we just basically set up and every night and played jazz. And if people came in, they could sit in on tunes, and it was pretty low rent, but there was a great response. People came in from all over the world and wanted to jam. And we just tried to play all night long as we could, as long as there were people there. And that was kind of the birth of the concept, And so from that point, we just kept applying through our fearless leader, Bill, and his networking. And we started to kind of invite more people to help us do this thing and build it. Because literally that first year in 2003, we were probably like 12 people, 15 people that had to do the whole thing, and like we didn't have a kitchen. We like had a 10-foot instant shade and like Coleman stove, and it was just like totally ghetto, no showers for the whole week, except of course, if you magically found one on the Playa or something, which did happen one year. But anyway, so each year it kind of started refining. We got some other people coming out, we made some adjustments to the dome. We kept adding shade structures, and showing up each year and networking, and people would keep coming back who had met us before, and the musician pool kind of grew. In the early days, again, like Bill was just kind of asking all of his friends in San Francisco to like come out and be a part of the camp just for like to kick in with work and money and all of that. We didn't even have dues or anything like that in the beginning. It was just sort of loose, But then it got big enough where we had to start, renting a moving truck to get all of our gear out there. And eventually more important people started joining, and then the infrastructures, kind of got more elaborate.
How many people are involved in your camp now?
Right now, man, we've had a lot of people come in and out, but we're still like generally around 30 people or a couple more. And I found, like, everyone's always like, why don't you just ask for more space, man? We can be bigger. And I'm just like, no, man, I don't want to be bigger. I don't want to be one of these corporations on the Playa where everyone pays $200 and like signs up for work shifts in some assembly line. It's like, for me, 22 people, 25 people is all you need, because I want it to be small enough that we can all sit around a dinner table and everyone's personally accountable, right? Everyone knows everyone. It's a tribal, coven-like system. That's where it works for us, man. So I keep, resisting getting bigger. Also, we've only gotten so much real estate. I don't want to be out by the large sound camps. I like to be smaller. And because we kind of just build everything from scratch ourselves, I found that that's the way to go. But as we kept going on through the years, eventually, like, I wasn't going to go one year, and they got some other musicians from LA who were going to step in, but then I came back anyway. And so we ended up with like this core of musicians from LA, this core of people from Salt Lake City, just kind of who randomly came through the years and kind of got grandfathered into the camp or whatnot. And then eventually Bill stepped down as the leader. He couldn't go anymore. And I just was like, before I was just the music coordinator. So it's like Terrell, chief engineer and drummer in the beginning days, and he's still one of the drummers. But he like basically can build everything. He built the sign, he built the dome, he built the shower, he built, you know, the kitchen setup, like any infrastructure that exists. He knows how to do it. He can do mechanics, he can do electrical, he can do sound. He's basically the mastermind, that the one person who's irreplaceable in the camp is Terrell Sugar Tits Tomlin, man. And it's just like he's really been there from the very beginning, and it just could have never happened with that aspect. I was the musical coordinator. I was like, if I can get out there with a rhythm section, I can make sure that jazz happens, you know, and that we stick to our theme. But eventually I took over as the camp lead, and now it's gotten like every single year there's like people sending me their resumes to join the camp. You know, I can do this, and I really want to be a part of your camp. And I guess that's the way Burning Man is now. People don't just go out and camp. They find a theme camp and try to get accepted, like applying for a job, you know, and then they just like get in, and I'm just like, who are these people? I don't know you, man. It's like...
We go out there and we don't camp with a specific camp. We do our own thing. It takes a lot of the responsibility and the stress out of it because I work in the music industry. I throw music festivals and events. And when I go to Burning Man, I don't want to be on the clock.
No,
I don't
man,
want
you
that.
don't want to be organizing people and things like that. Exactly. We tried to keep it pretty loose, but as we kept going on, at one point, they keep talking about interactivity and having more interactivity. So at some point, Bill asked me if I would do some jazz workshops during the day. So I started teaching jazz history and jazz theory workshops. And at first it was 2 days a week, and then all of a sudden it was like 5 days a week for hours each afternoon. I'm teaching and ranting. And then at night from 10 to 2 or later, I'm playing and hosting. And then there's people wanting to come with their bands and you're like coordinating them. And then I started doing the radio shows at BMIR. And so the last year we were there, I just started delegating. I'm like, if you're a musician who's coming and getting some assistance with ticketing because we need a band, then you're teaching a workshop. I'm done. And I don't care what you do, but just you got to rant and host something for 2 hours and play tunes and talk about them, So I've been trying to make it less work. But yeah, it's basically, when I'm out there, it's like I don't get to see much of Burning Man a lot of the time. And my wife's always giving me a hard time. But at the same time, I'm just like, trying to get gigs in the real world. I'm nobody, man. It's just like I don't have, the in and the publishing and the networking. So for me, it's a place where you can just be guaranteed have an artistic thing you can present, and there's going to be amazing receptive audiences every single night. And even at the workshops, people coming through asking questions, and I'm like turning people on to jazz, that they never thought about it before. So it's been, really good for me because I just feel like you can teach and you can play without all the bullshit of how many heads can you get in the house, how many seats can you guarantee to sell, or if you're teaching, you got all these, things that you have to do for the system. And it's just, most of it just feels like such bullshit and nothing to do with the art. That Burning Man is a place where literally it's not about profits and the business and the industry. It's just about the art, and you can do it. The challenging thing is it's really hard to rehearse people and to get people to do your stuff and to do your art, and things end up a little more hack than if you paid professionals in the real world. So it's this balance of it's the real art and you don't have to put up with the BS, but at the same time, it's probably pretty rough at the edges a lot of the time. And the CDs and recordings we've made out there, they're not like professional recordings. They're more like a snapshot of a moment in time, that you can be like, oh, this is hilarious. Remember when that was happening? But there's some, weird stuff that's been put on tape over the years.
I bet. The spontaneity of that camp and the looseness of the camp really plays well at Burning Man and creates an unexpected vibe that, I can spend 5-6 nights of the week there. And there's a lot of different stuff going on, and sometimes it's really hacky, and sometimes it is not.
Yeah, sometimes we're doing our thing and we get it rolling, but as an interactive camp, it's if anyone can play at all and say they know a tune, it's not like we're going to say no, and vibe them out. We're just if you've got the guts to butt your way up there and ask to sit in, we let them sit in, and you see a really mixed bag. And yeah, we've had some weird, spoken word drunks at 4 a.m. doing stuff that we don't even want our name associated with. But that's the thing. You have a PA and a mic sitting up there, and people want to come and do something. And a lot of the times they don't know what they're doing. And so I've always been a little bit strict in, like, you know, giving people the boot, and just in the keeping with our theme, right? It's like we're a jazz music camp. So if you can't play jazz, there's a million other camps, you know. You can head over to Hair of the Dog or wherever and do whatever, you know. And if people have a different project in it, you know, I'll let them do a set at like 8 in the evening before we get started. We've had a lot of people come through and do their solo act that isn't necessarily jazz, and just kind of use our venue if it's in our off hours. But I mean, that, you know, I'm realizing it takes some engineer there to turn on the stuff for them, you know, and do whatever.
One of my favorite moments at random was on one of the burn nights, and I was out of my mind, to be fair. And Santa Claus showed up. And
that's right, Santa Claus, the sax player. Yeah.
Dude, played a bunch of Christmas songs. He killed it. It was fucking great.
That dude's hilarious, man.
Santa's back. Longtime friend of the Jazz Cafe.
Exactly. And I mean, there's some people who've been coming for literally 15 years, and they'll come through and it's just like we never see them anywhere else in the world. We don't necessarily know who they are, but they're always rolling through and we reconnect. And I've had some, fairly, big name professional people come through as well, who've played with some, major acts, and it's crazy the people you'll meet out there,
Sure.
Yeah, like a professor from NYU showed up, this flamenco guitar guy, and did a set with his wife and all kinds of stuff. This singer who had sang with Jon Hendricks and back in the day, and he still comes through. He does this weird mouth trumpet thing where he sounds like he's a trumpet, but really, some interesting cats, and it's a mixed bag, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. I want to lightly just touch on what you said about transport, about getting stuff to and from the Playa, as well as storage. Do you guys just keep everything in a storage unit and use a U-Haul, or?
Yeah, so basically we got a couple of things. Well, every year we rent a 24-foot moving truck, and basically stuff it full. And my house is basically a giant Burning Man storage facility for the past 20 fucking years. So we have that, but I guess about 10 years ago, they had the container program that came through for a little bit. And it was you could basically get a storage container through them, and they transport it to your camp and then put it in storage in Reno or whatever. And one of our members, who is a venture capitalist and a great investor in the camp, ended up just doing that, paying for that outright, which was something crazy. It's $10,000, and then it's this much a year after that, as a rental fee. And he just did it. And we've never budgeted that out of camp dues or anything. He just was well, my back hurts and I'm not that good at lifting stuff, so I'm just going to do this to make it easier on everyone because this is crazy, And so we have a complete container stuffed to the gills with all the stuff that stays there, and then all the sound equipment and so much other stuff, bikes and whatnot come back in the moving truck each year. So But basically, the camp itself isn't seeing any yearly storage fees to be figured in, We have my house. Sparky got this container and never asks any questions, and we don't ask any questions, and we just submit the number in the, form each year, and it just keeps going, and that's just been how it is, and now they're not doing those anymore, but if you already had one, they have it's still functioning. So
wow,
it was just kind of a rando thing, but that was a huge life changer, getting that container, And now every space, someone sleeps in the container, we sleep in the truck, every one of those spaces is like a dust-free tent zone too, trying to fit in the real estate.
With the event not happening in 2020, or it happening virtually, you guys did a live stream thing that I was really grateful for. One of my favorite events that you guys do is Mingus and Mimosas.
Exactly.
And, such a good one. And we did that in 2020. As far as 2021 goes, I know Marion Goodall, the CEO of Burning Man, was going to be speaking Saturday, which by the time this is released, it'll probably be right after that. Do you have any inclination of what's going to be said, and what's your camp's status or approach right now going into this coming Burning Man?
Basically, I don't have any inside information, but it's looking more and more that it's going to happen, like a 60,000 person event instead of 80. I don't know if there's going to be proof of vaccination required or whatnot, but basically, I submitted my early application thing to say we would go. bunch of my camp members have already been vaccinated. I've had one of my shots. My guess is that Burning Man financially can't survive another year if it doesn't happen, and so they're probably going to risk all to make it happen if they can do it. I don't know if they can get the permit or whatever, if they'll have to do it at Fly Ranch that they own or how that's going to work. But we're basically acting as if it's going to happen. So I called the board of directors and I put out the word in my camp, is anyone crazy enough to do this if it happens? And we have a rhythm section and, chief engineer and our madman designer, and our sound man. So, yeah, I mean, we're basically going to try to go out there and do it again. Again, I said, it's like if we have 20 people, it's painful, but we can pull it off. I don't know what the pricing is going to be like or whatever. I'm a little frightened of that, but we are definitely just kind of going with the idea that it might happen and kind of planning accordingly. Mm-hmm. Again, there's not we're not like some camps where they're like building pirate ships from January on, it's like for us, basically, if it really comes down to it, since our infrastructure is so already there in the container and all of this, it's just a matter of a month of mad weekends and we can, basically, if we can rent the truck, it's like all the gear is here, it's like as long as you have a bass player, a piano, drums, and we have those things, it's like you can pull it off. And again, as long as we have Terrell. And so I think that everyone says that they're on board for that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and then a couple of members are just like, what? If I got to get vaccinated, I'm not going. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, just people get funny, man. They're like conspiracy theorists or whatever.
Some people don't dig science.
The vaccine's going to kill you. They're planting droids inside you, I have no idea, but I'm just like, I'm getting vaccinated anyway. Burning Man is a, giant part of my artistic identity, Again, I haven't really made the scene in the real world, so for me, it's pretty important part of my life these days. And, we've built this whole thing, this following, this family of people, and that you just don't really find everywhere. And so, yeah, if we're able to do it, we're going to try to do it.
Speaking of the real world, where are you based and what are some of the venues in your area that you appreciate?
I'm in San Jose myself, and again, Terrell's in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and we have some core members in San Francisco and Mill Valley, so we're from all around, man. But yeah, it would be my local venues that I appreciate. There's a place, the Art Boutique, happening in San Jose that has been trying to weather this storm and doing live stream events, and they've, let me play there before in the past, and so for San Jose, they're good. I mean, in terms of the jazz venues, Kumba Jazz Center in Santa Cruz, is great as well, and always gets class acts coming through.
I think I booked Fareed Hawk there one time.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't know if they survived. There was Cafe Stritch going on downtown San Jose that was getting some international people and, always had great local jazz musicians playing, And then, up in the city, it's like, of course, there's the SF Jazz Center or whatnot. It's, pretty large scale kind of thing, but they're definitely doing their part to keep jazz alive. But yeah, those, just kind of the basic places that pop into my head. I mean, there's a lot of smaller stuff going on, and, little restaurants and Club Deluxe and, different things go on. But again, I don't get out, well, there's been nowhere to go out to, but being down here in the South Bay, I'm not as prevalent on the San Francisco scene, just because that hour drive in the middle of the night and coming home, it makes it a little hard to get it inspired. So I usually, just get up for, bigger events or things, or,
sure,
something that friends are doing.
Will you leave us today with maybe a few of your favorite jazz albums and artists?
Oh, yeah, jazz albums and artists. Okay, man. Let's think here. We'll go era by era. Well, I really have to say, like the Sonny Rollins record, The Bridge. It's got Jim Hall on guitar. So I was always a junkie for trying to find guitar as the accompanying instrument instead of piano, and so I kind of discovered that record early on, and it really spoke to me and inspired
Jim Hall
me.
was incredible. Just an incredible player. I saw a tribute to Jim Hall maybe last year and a half ago.
Yeah, he's just so subtle and but so skilled and intelligent of a player, and so that was in terms of the older guard, that was a very, inspiring record in my life or whatnot. And so I'll name a couple of things. I found this really great Lee Morgan album, In Search of the New Land. And, you'd think of Lee Morgan as this hard bop player, but he's it's basically like a modal jazz album with Wayne Shorter on it. And I just kind of discovered it as this amazing gem of that modal jazz era that is a little lesser known. And so that's definitely a great record that I've appreciated. Again, just speaking as a guitarist or whatever, the Wes Montgomery album, the Boss Guitar, where he's in the organ trio with Melvin Ryan and Jimmy Cobb on drums, though, I thought was just some of the great Wes playing in that format. And then his record Full House as well, which had Wynton Kelly Trio playing with Wes, was really kind of big for me as well, man.
I love the dynamic duo stuff he does with Jimmy Smith.
Yeah, I got into that. That's a little, some of it's a little bit hard boppy and produced, some of the later stuff he did, but obviously amazing playing, going on that. And then, in terms of newer stuff, I really love the Kurt Rosenwinkel album, The Next Step. It's just, one of his earlier records, again, with the guitar quartet, with just sax, and just some really great playing in the kind of modern sound, of the early 2000s or whatever. But yeah, man, and I just kind of, keep exploring the vast landscape. I've been in a Miles Davis era recently because I've been reading biographies and then kind of using that to discover all these albums and side projects, and so, I mean, the Coltrane record with the Blue Train on it or whatever, his first 57 record, I just think is really, really heavy playing before he gets super out there in the modal landscape and eventually goes off the deep end. But I love all the Miles stuff, man, from the early volumes in the early 50s, it's just he seems to do something in every epic of jazz, bebop, Birth of the Cool, and hard bop, and then the stuff he did with, Coltrane and Red Garland and Philly Joe and whatnot in the late 50s, all those Prestige records.
Sure.
And
I love the stuff he did with Keith and Chick when they had the two key thing going on.
Yeah, that's when it gets
wild.
super deep, man. But yeah, exactly. He basically invents fusion, and everyone in his band goes and leads these great fusion groups. So I'm still getting my history understanding together on the 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
It gets a little weird there. And so when you're studying traditional jazz, people steer you away from those decades. But I'm finding that in every era and decade, there's all kinds of amazing stuff. It's just you get the timbre of the times,
I really feel like maybe even more than any other, lasting genre, that jazz really does reflect the sound of the era. More so than anything else, I feel like.
I know, yeah, because I've been going to some of these early, Tony Williams records and stuff, and then it's like you look at the album covers and you hear this and you're just like, I was listening to Zeppelin and early Pink Floyd, but it's just like, why wasn't I listening to this shit? It's the same stuff, It's just everything. Once you get the late 1960s, everything is acid music for 6 years or something, man. It doesn't matter what genre you're in. The album covers do these whacked things, and it's like the music is so out there. So I'm still, still exploring and trying to appreciate it all. But it's a vast thing, and then the contemporary scene is a lot to keep up with as well.
Have you listened to the stuff that John McLaughlin and Jimmy Herring were doing?
No, I got to check that out.
Terrifying in the best way. Just guitar gods, Yeah,
McLaughlin, he is just a different level of technique.
Sure. I love all of the Shakti stuff as some of my deepest and most favorite jazz, as crazy as that may sound. I really love that Indian flavor. It's really amazing.
I got to explore more of it. Like I said, that's my weak links is the some of that stuff, but I'm just sort of, having read the Miles biography, I got exposed to a little more of who to go check out in the 70s and 80s scene, and it's like now I'm coming to it with more of an appreciation, now that I'm older. It's just it's all just where the music was going and where people were taking it, and
hello, Miles.
Yeah, I mean, he went really weird and, starts playing Cyndi Lauper tunes and this and that, but he also has some sick jams with Schofield on guitar and, just Bob Berg jamming sax, and it's there's some great stuff.
Sure is.
People just go their way, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this conversation, Neil. I'm really grateful for all of the work that you put into Playa Jazz Cafe and that camp so the rest of us can enjoy it, because for me it's an oasis in the middle of a barrage of electronic music, and to be able to crawl into that space and feel so comfortable and welcomed in that dome that is the Jazz Cafe, it's a really special thing for me and a big part of my experience. So thank you so much.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I think that's what it makes it stand out there is that because the jazz and the live music is such an anomaly there, that people come in with an open mind, different than they would in the default world, where they maybe would never think of listening to jazz. But you stumble into the cafe in a weird state at the Man, and next thing you know, you're like, hey, maybe I do like jazz, and so that's what we're all about, just trying to convert souls and, have a place where our art and style can be appreciated. So thank you for coming by. And definitely, come say hello and don't be shy if we both make it out there again this year.
Thank you for listening to Galaxy Tenants. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. For early access to episodes and exclusive content, check us out on Patreon. Also, if you'd like to communicate with us, send an email to galaxytenants@gmail.com or leave a voicemail on the Galaxy Tenants hotline at 303-550-2065.
You've reached the Galaxy Tenants hotline. Please leave a message.